He's big and nasty and surly and decaying.
Jason Voorhees.
He's a cool ass telling people what kind of dude.
Jason Voorhees.
I just love the way he kills people.
He just comes at you, and he doesn't stop coming at you till you're dead.
There's a definite connection between the fast food franchise and the Friday the 13th franchise. This is a very successful hamburger.
June 13th, 1980, the day red meat came back into the American diet.
A slasher film is a film with a body count.
Body count film is where you take an attractive cast and knock them off one by one, Agatha Christie style, and then there were none. Actually, you probably could call that the original body count film.
All it is a rhythmic killing of about a dozen people per feature film.
Mario Bava, the Italian master of the macabre, had done a film, Twitch of the Death Nerve. In that film, a number of people are dispatched one after another in a particularly grisly fashion.
Bava's Twitch the Death Nerve, I think, is very much a part of the vocabulary.
The slasher film's innovation was they got to add gore to the mix.
When Tobe Hooper made Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he made a film that was scary as hell and could be all shot in a farmhouse.
All of them have to do with some maniac, some serial killer, ripping people to pieces.
The serial killer, of course, the granddaddy of them all, is Jack the Ripper.
When The Omen came out in 1976, I had these really creative, outlandish death scenes, and the slasher films started to imitate those special effects.
Halloween came out, I believe, in 1978, and that film was so successful.
Actually, Friday the 13th created the term slasher film because even though there were films like that before, there was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there was Halloween, but there was nobody who did it with a purity.
These fine-ass chicks are having sex and they get wiped out, man. That's what a slasher flick is.
Usually a couple good-looking girls who don't mind taking off their clothes and are doing naughty things, and a big bad guy who's coming to punish them.
We all went to summer camp. Well, Friday the 13th took summer camp and turned it into a nightmare.
Every state has its Jason. Our story was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is the New Jersey story.
These campfire tales started on the East Coast. Spooky tales that counselors used to tell at night to keep kids in line.
From what I remember, Cropsey is that kind of folklore. He's a caretaker at a camp who creeps the kids out, and they pull a prank on him and end up setting him on fire, quite by accident, as Cropsey runs off into the lake, is doused with water, but nobody ever sees Cropsey again. Cropsey starts to haunt the kids at this camp.
Pretty much there were variations of that kind of got handed down and eventually saw fruition in the Friday the 13th films and all the slasher films that came out after that, like The Burning.
Sean Cunningham, Wes Craven, and Steve Miner collaborated on the picture Last House on the Left, which is absolutely the sickest movie ever made.
It's just a fairly straightforward documentary approach to a brutal, brutal crime.
The Last House on the Left kicked open the door to the kinds of cinematic violence and viciousness you could show on screen.
I think they were all sort of schooled in this very down and dirty, do anything to get a movie made sort of way.
At that point, we had done a soccer picture, and we were looking forward to doing a TV series based on the soccer picture. And as a way to keep the lights on, it was, I've got an idea. Let's make a movie. We could make a scary movie. And so we tried to figure out how to make the simplest, scariest movie we could. That's what created Friday the 13th.
Victor Miller wrote a great script, which was more along the lines of a thriller mystery, where a mother has lost her son and she seeks revenge.
Friday the 13th was shot independently by Sean Cunningham. He raised the money himself by taking out an ad in Variety seeking investors.
He recruited, Tom Savini, who had just come off of Dawn of the Dead. The Dawn of the Dead stuff got them an X rating, so I'm sure Sean was like, jackpot, we need this guy.
Brought him up to a campground in New Jersey and made movie history. Let's get as many deaths, the highest body count as you can, the wildest ways you could think of killing people, and put the stuff out there.
One of the things that makes us gore fans is knowing all the tricks and knowing where you had to hide the guy who operated the arrow and how the gag worked and where the actor's body really is.
I was on the set, I was 11 years old. It was magical for me. That was really the first true taste of filmmaking that I had ever gotten. Sean was sort of this wizard. There was something really remarkable about it. And they were great actors. I mean, you know, Kevin Bacon is on set and Betsy Palmer. Sean always kind of kept things as a family. Harry Manfredini has written the music for Jason X. He wrote the music for Jason Goes to Hell, and he also wrote the music for the first Friday the 13th. It's a little bit of the family business. It's kind of a creepy family business, but a family business nonetheless.
The original Friday the 13th is a pretty primal filmmaking experience, a fight house kind of movie. Against all odds, Paramount picked it up. They took this low-budget, fairly sleazy little picture and opened it on thousands of screens in the same summer that gave us The Shining and Dressed to Kill. And the film was a hit. It was more profitable than The Shining and made more money than Dressed to Kill.
I was completely surprised with the success of this series. Friday the 13th was meant to be a potboiler. It was meant to be a way for me to buy clothes for my family. And I thought that the big hit I was going to have was going to be a TV series. And as it turned out, it was Friday the 13th. TV series never got picked up. But Friday the 13th has put my kids through college.
It dethroned The Empire Strikes Back.
I remember kids in school, everybody wanted to talk about Friday the 13th and all the innovative death scenes. It really got people talking back in 1980.
I remember even in our hometown, which is a pretty conservative little town, the film played for about 4.5 months, nonstop, and packed, all the time packed.
In many ways, it's a perfect movie. I like it better than Halloween. I think it's scarier to have a mongoloid whose mother is Betsy Palmer than having Donald Pleasance and just a crazy guy.
The first movie's success was so phenomenal that it allowed over 80 slasher films to be produced in the next 12 months after its release.
It was a golden time from like 1978 to 1983.
That was right as latex makeup really took off. With makeup artists, there were so many guys that wanted to do it. You saw everybody and their brother making those movies, and they cost like $1.37 each.
Every weekend, some new holiday-themed slasher film was coming out, and all these slasher icons were becoming the new Frankensteins, Dracula, Wolfman. A new generation of horror heroes were born.
When Friday the 13th became a big hit in the summer of 1980, I'm sure everyone thought, well, we need to make a sequel and we need to make it fast.
Once an audience has demonstrated and voiced an interest in a particular product, and if it is suitable for making sequels, that's a great thing.
Paramount gave them the ability to make the sequels fast. They were churning these babies out.
I think the spawning factor equals the murder factor.
Hire a bunch of kids that nobody knows yet. Let them run around the woods, and there's a killer coming after them. The most expensive thing you're going to pay for is the makeup effects.
Nobody expected it to be a big hit, let alone having, gone on for 20 years.
The first movie had the big climactic ending. You think everything's done, and then Jason comes flying out of the lake and grabs the girl and pulls her in. A lot of people don't even remember that Jason wasn't even the killer in that movie.
Betsy Palmer did the killings in the very first Friday the 13th movie.
Kill. Which Betsy Palmer told me Manfredini was taking her subconscious command of kill me, kill them, mommy. So that kill, mom.
When she gets her head sliced off with a machete, what a moment in film history.
Jason Voorhees is the retarded son of the Betsy Palmer character.
A little boy who was drowned in this lake with this big hydrocephalic head, and he comes up for vengeance for his dead mother. Part 2, in allowing Jason to become the villain, brought it to this ghost story level.
He grew up in the woods to become an even bigger mongoloid, this misshapen Hulk.
He wore this elephant man sack over his head with one hole cut out where the eye would be.
The hillbilly deliverance Jason, Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. The real innovation of that film, of course, is the introduction of the hockey mask.
He covers his face because he doesn't want to be seen ashamed of his looks, really.
Oh, poor baby. No wonder you wore this thing.
They've always played with his features, made him really pretty gross, misshapen and enlarged and balding with little tufts of hair.
The face of fear is only scary as long as we don't see it. That hockey mask being white and so clean and so shapeless is so perfect to hide what we're afraid of. What's behind that mask?
Can someone tell me what's on his face?
Some kind of 20th century carbon filtration unit?
It's a hockey mask.
The mystique over the mask just continued to grow.
He's iconic. You can't help but recognize him.
Your favorite wrestler has a certain look. You want your favorite serial killer in your movie to have that look.
They were up to number 4 by 1984, I think. At the end of part 4, he's a melted milk dud in that scene. I mean, you can't be deader than he is.
There's debate that in Jason Lives, Jason became a zombie. He was originally just a guy who was hard to kill.
Probably dead now, and it's hard to kill something that's already dead.
I think he's immoral because, he came back about 13 times.
We tried everything. Electrocution, gas, firing squad. We even hung him once. Nothing worked.
In part 6, he gets metal gate posts run through every single part of his body, like numerous times, and he keeps coming back.
He's been burned, he's been blown up, shot, hit with machetes, his own machete.
His head always has to be eviscerated in the final scene of the movie.
He's a kind of a walking corpse. He's not just some retarded guy in the woods, but he's a monster, a zombie, a killing machine that's brought back to life through some kind of supernatural means.
Jason is like the tide. He's a man on a mission. He's coming forward, and nothing is going to stop him.
This is the personification of evil, which of course cannot be destroyed.
At its core, Jason is the boogeyman. He is the fear of untimely death. You can never really kill or defeat the boogeyman. The most you can do is fight him to a draw.
The villain, it's this great supernatural villain, this unstoppable, object.
Jason has the personality of the shark in Jaws. He just, eats whatever comes into his path.
If he sees you, he's going to kill you. That's his only determining factor.
He's pretty much just a soulless killing machine. There aren't too many levels to his personality.
I don't remember them ever even trying to do a scene where we see the sensitive moment where Jason questions his motives.
Because he's fucking crazy.
His mother blames the counselors because they were having sex and having drugs, which many of you out there are doing, and therefore you're going to die a gruesome death.
So there is almost a moral thing that goes on in these movies.
Anything your parents told you not to do, if you do it in one of these movies, you die.
Even when I was growing up as a teenager, when I would be out with friends and we'd be doing something that we shouldn't have been doing, there was a sense of someone's going to come get us because of this.
You want a beer? Or do you want to smoke some pot?
Every time somebody walks into the woods and smokes a joint in a Jason movie, you know they're dead. They're just dead. Drugs, sex, bad.
We love premarital sex.
If you have sex in a van, forget it. Smoke dope in these movies, you're gonna die. If you're ugly, you're gonna die. The fat girl sitting on the side of the road eating a banana. Skinny dipping, of course. The practical joker must die. Raggedy man that's standing by the side of the road and says, "We are doomed." Anybody who says Jason is dead dies. Being a bitch, you die for that. Wearing too much makeup is enough to die. So, there are many, many reasons that Jason will kill you.
Everyone has to be dead, except for one thoroughly exhausted, once attractive teenage girl who is reduced to a pair of panties, covered in mud, out in the field, branches scratching her. She's got nothing left to go except that one little bit. She's almost there. Does she? Nope, she's not going to get there. She's got, they're all dead.
Jason has used virtually every kind of kitchen implement, certainly.
In the machete, he's nothing without that.
In part 7, he used a lot of lawn and garden implements.
He used a weed whacker,
auto body shop implements,
screwdrivers,
eye gouging with his thumbs,
baseball bats,
a spear gun.
The axe is always a trusty weapon.
He slits a guy lengthwise from groin to head. There's a lot of penetration of the flesh, various steel things going all the way through the flesh. This guy gets stabbed to death through a stag movie.
Sleeping bag death's always been a classic in the Friday the 13th series.
There's a great scene where a woman is frozen in liquid nitrogen and her face shattered.
There's, 250 bodies to his credit.
We've run periodic body count tallies in the magazine.
I did kill 28 people in Jason X. I killed 7 people in the first 2.5 minutes of the movie. So it sets a good tone.
Now, these films kind of satisfy this bloodlust in the audience. You don't go to see great acting or clever storytelling.
Good shooting, Mahoney. Now clean up all this shit, huh?
Audiences really just go to see Jason do his thing, swing that machete, and kill as many people as possible.
Yeah, you know, stick 'em again.
These movies are about the audience. They're about the down and dirty. What do the fans want? What do they want to scream for? How do they want to react?
These are what we used to call the date movies. That was our specialty, how to get a guy to take a girl to the movie that they both wanted to see. She'd get scared, she'd grab him, he'd hold her, and it was the beginning of a wonderful evening.
I think people have always liked horror films, and they'll always be made, and people will always see them because it's like the stimulation. They're being scared.
To root for Jason is sort of like riding a roller coaster. You get at the top of the thing and you go shooting down and everybody puts their hands up in the air and goes, yeah!
There are people who never leave their apartments who just watch this type of video over and over.
Only like really cool people see horror films, I think, and that's what makes them good.
It's a powerful fan club. I think it speaks to alienation. The guy dating the cheerleader and the football quarterback, he's not exactly the Jason fan. They appeal to the strength of the outcasts.
He was drowned by these kids and he didn't fit in. I could relate to that, you know, kids picked on me.
It's amazing to me sometimes the variety of fans.
It's real fans, you know, who get hooked on them when they're young. They watch them their whole life.
A lot of fans that are in their 60s that love these movies, kids that are 5 years old. They come up to me and say, I love your movies and I know how the makeup works and everything, and they're not scared by them.
When is too much violence too much?
It's one of those things that I'm sure critics just would wish that this cockroach of a film would just disappear.
It would be written about by mainstream film critics, but they would write about it in order to say, how harmful is this to society?
Do people who watch these movies begin imitating them at some point?
I remember watching sneak previews with Siskel and Ebert, and the two of them launching a campaign against Friday the 13th, actually urging viewers to write to Paramount and complain about the film.
This is an age-old discussion about the responsibility of the filmmaker.
You know, I went all across the country defending these films.
So banning horror films, is it going to have the rape rate drop?
They say that there's a lot of killings in these flicks and it could be a bad influence on the viewer's mind, but who cares, because there's so much of it everywhere and anything that, who cares?
I think they're disgusting.
Mainly you would be on a panel with someone who said that violent movies create violence in society. What they were really saying is violence in a movie is not going to affect me. It's going to affect all those other people, those skanky people out there who don't know how to watch a movie. We understand, but they don't.
Fantasy has always been an outlet, and I think that if you go back all the way to Greek plays, there's enormous amounts of violence in the drama that Sophocles and those guys wrote.
Well, it's no more graphic than real life.
What these groups always seem to forget, no matter what they're protesting, is that they are only helping us sell tickets. When I was a teenager, if I heard parents didn't like a movie, I was the first online. That was exciting. I was in a theater every weekend seeing a slasher movie. And quite honestly, it just led me to direct one of them. It didn't lead me to, slaughter anybody.
Kane Hodder started out as a stuntman, and he definitely had the physical goods to personify Jason Voorhees.
I'm a little larger than most of the stunt guys in the business, so I have the opportunity of getting acting parts that have stunts involved, which consequently got me into the Jason role.
Jason is a horrible job. You wear all that stuff and you walk around and you probably sit in makeup for hours. Up until Kane Hodder, nobody really wanted to do that job twice. But Kane wanted to do it 4 times.
The first 2 movies that I did, Part 7 and Part 8, I was amazed that I was actually playing this character. And once I got everything on and put the hockey mask on, it felt so natural. I just felt like that was the part that I was born to play. It's very hard to make a character scary if you can't use your facial expressions or your voice. It's all in how you stand.
Kane Hodder as Jason has a certain vocabulary of movement that he's created. He actually has a thing where his head moves first and then the body follows.
He's the kind of guy who will stand while blocking a scene, will look the director and the writer dead in the face and say, no, Jason won't do that. and caused the writer and the director to go, okay.
In Jason X, there was a scene written where I come up behind a guy and grab him around the neck and snap his neck. We've seen that a lot of times. I don't mind breaking the guy's neck, but how about if come up behind the guy, grab him around the neck, and slowly break his neck? You know, just keep squeezing and see it twist, and then you hear crunch, and he falls.
I think he thinks he's Jason.
When I started playing the character and really enjoying the character, I thought, you know, this might be kind of interesting for fans to see how much I really enjoyed playing Jason, so I did that.
Kane has really made himself into a real cult celebrity by appearing at the conventions and TV shows and stuff and getting the Jason name out there. He's a very personable guy. He likes to meet the fans.
Hey, big guy, would you say hello to my wife, Joanne?
Yes, I did.
He's the only actor to play Jason more than once. He's been aggressive in keeping Jason alive.
There's 28 kills in Jason X.
I'll be there.
Kane's perfect for horror conventions because Kane's a nut.
Every 13th person that comes through the line, I beat to death with their own arms, so that's kind of fun for me. It's always a good time for all of us guys to get together. I never as a stunt person, expected any kind of notoriety. Do you enjoy playing the character? Yes, I do. Is it hard to work in the makeup? Yes, it is. Would you kill my mom? No, I won't. You know, when you kill people in the movies, you really kill them? I know what they want to hear, so I say, yeah, I do. Because it's really effective that way.
What the hell is going on?
Jason fucking voorhees, that's what's going on.
The fun of it is that you've got this master of ceremonies at the center of slasher movies.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Leatherface, Halloween and Michael Myers.
Michael Myers is more of a phantom-type figure.
Jason and Michael Myers are somewhat similar, that wear masks, they don't talk, and they do all the killing.
Freddy Krueger, of course, lives in a dream world. Freddy Krueger didn't come along until '84.
This is God.
I was actually jealous of Sean and Friday the 13th because they had sold their film to Paramount, and we had just, with lots of aggravation, managed to make our first little film, which was Nightmare on Elm Street. So we showed Nightmare on Elm Street to Frank Mancuso at Paramount. They passed on it. Sean had made it, and we were still stumbling around a little bit.
Comparing Nightmare on Elm Street series, and there were 7 of those, to Friday the 13th, I'd say Nightmare on Elm Street kind of has the upper hand in terms of, the stories were a little more innovative, they had more special effects. The killer also had personality, something that Jason never had.
The prime time, bitch!
Freddy makes fun of people. He's more campy.
Freddy is pretty much the Henny Youngman of the slasher genre. He always has a one-liner.
What a rush!
Jason doesn't speak. Jason just kills people, and at that he's very good. Paramount pretty much was always embarrassed by the success of the Friday the 13th films. This is something they didn't want to be known for. This is the studio that made movies like Ordinary People.
Paramount Pictures was ashamed of Friday the 13th. They weren't proud of it at all. But when it started making money, baby.
Paramount, I'm sure, was getting tremendous flack over those pictures, but they were also getting tremendous returns.
They opened them on lots of screens. They just wanted to open that weekend, make a killing in those first few days. They did very little to publicize the films. They were ugly stepchildren that they just put out there and could make a quick profit on. But they really didn't care how good or bad the films were.
Then they started on a downward slide, culminating with Part 8, where you were really not making a tremendous amount of money back, and you're still getting the flack from parents groups and everybody else.
New Line Cinema took over the series with Jason Goes to Hell, which came out in the summer of 1993.
Horror has many faces. Death wears many different masks. But pure evil wears only one. And this is your final chance to see it.
I think the transition from Paramount to New Line was very abrupt. Friday the 13th, in and of itself, started slipping below their production radar. Sean still owned the underlying rights. I don't know whether they just said, please take it and go away.
Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday.
I would think New Line would be much better marketer of this kind of movie than Paramount, simply because they'd done Freddy Krueger.
It was really the perfect home for Jason and Friday the 13th.
Their early days are in this exploitation film era.
They just have a much better idea how to market this type of film.
He's killed more than 115 people, and there have been 8 attempts to avenge those deaths.
New Line has the right sensibilities to have been able to resurrect this franchise the right way.
Sean Cunningham was back as the producer, and he wanted to do something different.
Noel Cunningham, who produced Jason X. Noel and I were best friends when we were kids. We loved these movies. We loved these pictures. How do we say, as young filmmakers, what we love? It's a film for the fans, by the fans.
It was the one in the series that has nothing to do with the movies that came before it. It has nothing to do with the movie after it.
We literally pulled the evil spirit of Jason out of Jason's body for the length of the picture. He's only on screen for 2 sequences, which made a lot of fans unhappy. And then there were a lot of fans who got it and loved it. It was like, it's different. Finally, it's a little different. I didn't want it to be every other Jason movie. I wanted it to be different. I wanted people to miss Jason. And then when they get him back, it's like a prize.
Today, it's virtually impossible to do a straight horror movie with an original idea because there have been so many parodies.
What Scream did so effectively is something that I think a lot of the Freddy movies and the Jason movies had already explored, which is take the conventions of the genre, turn them on their ear, or even point the finger at them.
Planning on smoking a little dope, having a little premarital sex, and getting slaughtered?
There are an awful lot of people out there that are attached to the Friday the 13th series, you know, and they want something new, they want something better.
Jason X is a really aggressive reinvention where they tried very hard just to have fun.
I think we need to reboot.
It delivers the goods in terms of the body count, but they came up with some really cool stuff for Jason to do. This is really good special effects.
In Jason X, the women were looking good, they were getting naked, and they were getting killed.
Now with Jason X, you know, putting him into space, giving it, for the Matrix generation, a new look.
I must get an email a week from somebody somewhere around the world saying, "Whatever happened to Jason versus Freddy?"
Ever since that last shot in Jason Goes to Hell, fans have been talking about a Freddy versus Jason movie.
What are these people doing? They said we were going to have Jason versus Freddy.
Who do you think would win, man?
It's always been a natural that Jason and Freddy would meet when they're working for the same company.
That poster, all it's got to be is Jason on one side, Freddy on the other, and a big VS in blood in the middle.
They have to battle because I want to kick Freddy's ass.
And in this corner, Freddy Krueger, and in this corner, Jason Voorhees.
Freddy has his wits, Jason has his strength, so should be a pretty good battle.
Freddy's the smartest villain in history, and Jason's a mongoloid. How fair could the fight be?
There isn't any great navigational plan in mind. There is just a really, truly, and honestly overweening desire to make this film, which I think a lot of fans are waiting for, as good as we could possibly think of making it.
I don't think anyone thought that we would be sitting here 22 years later talking about Friday the 13th.
The Friday the 13th franchise is beyond criticism. We don't even criticize them anymore.
The Jason movie is a roller coaster ride that allows the audience to leave their lives for that 90 minutes and just have fun. It's just fun. And how many things can you say are just that?